In the quiet borderlands where the bustling noise of the busy world began to fade into a gentle murmur, there lived a young cartographer named Julien. He spent his days drawing maps of lands that people had already traveled, tracing roads, rivers, and mountains with black ink. Yet, in the quiet corners of his mind, Julien always dreamed of mapping the things that could not be easily found on a page. He dreamed of capturing the soft glow of the evening sky, the scent of rain before it touched the grass, and the place where colors went when the sun went down. For years, travelers had spoken of the legendary Whispering Vale, a hidden valley that lay far beyond the jagged peaks of the mist-shrouded mountains. They whispered stories around the fire of a secret clearing where the rainbows of the world went to rest, drinking from a pool of pure light and regaining their vibrant colors. It was a place of absolute peace, where no worries could follow and the wind sang a slow, steady lullaby. Julien decided that he would seek this legendary sanctuary, not to claim its beauty, but to find a moment of true quiet. On a cool, clear morning, Julien packed a simple leather notebook, a bottle of dark ink, and a single wooden pen into his knapsack. He tied his walking boots tight and set off down the path that led away from his little stone house. The morning sun was just beginning to peek over the hills, casting long, soft shadows across the dew-kissed grass. The air was crisp and carried the faint scent of pine needles and damp earth, filling Julien with a sense of quiet anticipation as he stepped forward into the great unknown. The road wound through rolling hills covered in carpets of wildflowers that swayed gently in the morning breeze. The colors of the blossoms were soft and pastel, like a painting that had been lightly brushed with water. There were pale blues, soft lavenders, and creamy yellows, all blending together under the morning light. Julien walked at a slow, deliberate pace, breathing in the fresh air and listening to the rhythmic crunch of gravel beneath his boots. The world felt wide and empty in the most peaceful way possible. As the afternoon arrived, the path entered a dense forest where the trees were tall and ancient, their branches interlocking overhead to form a canopy of deep green. Sunlight filtered down through the leaves in dusty, golden beams, illuminating patches of moss on the forest floor. The forest was remarkably quiet, save for the occasional soft chirp of a bird nesting high above or the rustle of a small creature moving through the underbrush. Julien felt a deep sense of calm wash over him, as if the forest itself were welcoming his quiet journey. He followed the path deeper into the woods, where the air grew cooler and smelled of old cedar and damp soil. The trees seemed to lean in close, whispering secrets in a language of rustling leaves. Julien stopped by a small, clear stream that bubbled over smooth gray pebbles. He knelt down and cupped his hands, drinking the cold, sweet water. It tasted of mountain snow and clean rain, refreshing him instantly. He sat on a mossy log for a moment, watching the tiny ripples in the water catch the filtered sunlight. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting a warm amber glow through the trees, the path began to ascend. The forest grew thinner, replaced by rocky outcrops and small patches of mountain heather. Mist began to rise from the valleys below, swirling around Julien's ankles like soft, white silk. The air carried a cool dampness that felt refreshing against his skin. He knew that the mountains were close now, their dark silhouettes rising against the darkening sky like sleeping giants waiting for the night to arrive. Julien found a small, sheltered hollow between two large boulders to spend his first night. He laid out his sleeping roll and built a small, modest fire using dry twigs and pine cones. The flames crackled softly, throwing warm light against the stone walls of his shelter. As he watched the sparks drift up towards the stars, he pulled out his notebook and wrote a few lines about the peace of the trail. The silence of the mountain night was vast and comforting, wrapping around him like a heavy, warm blanket. When the morning came, the mist had cleared, revealing a brilliant blue sky that seemed to stretch on forever. Julian packed his gear and continued his climb, the path winding steeper up the rocky slopes. Around midday, he reached the crest of a ridge and saw a figure sitting on a flat stone. It was a badger, but much larger than any he had seen before, wearing a small woven vest and holding a steaming wooden mug. The badger looked up with gentle, dark eyes and nodded in quiet greeting. The badger introduced himself in a low, gravelly voice that sounded like smooth stones rolling in a stream. He said his name was Barnaby, and he was a traveler of the high paths, seeking the quiet places of the world. He offered Julian a cup of warm chamomile tea from a small copper kettle resting on a flat, heated stone. Julian accepted gratefully, sitting down beside the badger on the warm rock. They sat in comfortable silence for a long time, sipping their tea and looking out over the vast valley below. Barnaby spoke of the old trails and the secret places of the forest, his voice carrying a soothing rhythm that made Julian's shoulders relax. He told Julian that the entrance to the Whispering Vale was not far, but it could only be found by those who walked with a quiet heart. The valley was protected by the ancient magic of the earth, which kept it hidden from the busy and the loud. Julian smiled, realizing that he had found a kindred spirit in this gentle beast of the mountains. They decided to walk together for the afternoon, their paces matching perfectly. Barnaby moved with a slow, steady gait, never rushing, taking time to admire an unusually shaped leaf or a patch of velvet moss. Julian found himself slowing down even more, matching the badger's mindful steps. The path led them along the edge of a deep canyon, where a river flowed far below, its distant roar sounding like a soft, continuous whisper. The scale of the world around them was immense, yet Julian felt completely safe. As the shadows grew longer, Barnaby led Julian to a hidden path that branched off from the main trail, descending into a narrow, wooded ravine. The air here was warm and smelled of damp ferns and sweet pine. The ground was soft underfoot, carpeted with thick needles that muffled their footsteps. The light became a soft, glowing twilight, filtered through the thick canopy of ancient fir trees. It felt as if they were entering a different world, one untouched by time and the passage of seasons. In the heart of the ravine, they found a small, grassy clearing where a natural hot spring bubbled up from the earth, filling the air with warm, gentle steam. Barnaby suggested they make camp here, and Julian eagerly agreed. They gathered dry wood and built a small fire near the edge of the water. The warmth of the spring and the crackle of the fire created a cocoon of absolute comfort. Julian felt the remaining tension from his long journey melt away into the warm night air. They shared a simple meal of dried fruits, nuts, and flatbread, talking in hushed tones about the stars that were beginning to appear overhead. Barnaby pointed out the constellations, telling old stories of the sky that had been passed down through generations of forest dwellers. His voice was like a gentle lullaby, drifting through the steam of the spring. Julian lay back on his sleeping roll, looking up at the countless points of light, feeling incredibly small yet deeply connected to the universe. Before they slept, Barnaby handed Julian a small, polished stone that glowed with a faint, iridescent light, like a pearl held under water. He told Julian to keep it close, as it was a token of the veil, given to those who sought the rainbow's end with pure intentions. Julian held the stone in his hand, feeling its cool, smooth surface, and thanked his friend. He closed his eyes, and for the first time in many years, his sleep was deep, dreamless, and completely peaceful. When Julian woke, the morning sun was filtering through the trees, but Barnaby was gone, leaving only a neat pile of sweet berries on a leaf and a small note written in elegant, looping script. The note simply said to follow the stream upward and to trust the light. Julian ate the fresh berries, which were incredibly sweet and juicy, and packed his belongings. He tucked the small, glowing stone into his pocket, feeling its reassuring warmth against his side as he started his walk. He followed the bubbling stream as it wound its way up through the ravine, the water sparkling like liquid diamonds under the morning sun. The air was filled with the music of the water, a soothing melody that changed pitch as the stream flowed over flat rocks and tumbled down small drops. The forest around him seemed to grow more vibrant, the green of the leaves deeper and the bark of the trees richer. It was as if the world were waking up to a new, beautiful day. After an hour of walking, the ravine opened up into a wide, spectacular valley surrounded by tall, snow-capped peaks. The valley floor was a sea of soft, green grass, dotted with small groves of silver birch trees whose leaves shivered in the gentle breeze. In the center of the valley lay a large, glassy lake, its surface so still that it perfectly mirrored the blue sky and the surrounding mountains. It was a sight of breathtaking beauty, and Julian stood still for a long moment, simply taking it in. Julian walked down to the edge of the lake, where the water was so clear he could see the colorful stones lying on the bottom. There were red jasper, green jade, and yellow amber, all polished smooth by the water. He sat on a large, flat rock at the water's edge and took out his notebook. He dipped his pen in the ink and began to write, trying to capture the absolute stillness of the lake. The air was completely calm, and not a single ripple disturbed the water's perfect reflection. As he wrote, he noticed that the light in the valley was beginning to change, even though the sun was still high in the sky. The sunlight seemed to split into soft, pastel colors, casting a gentle pink and lavender glow over the grass and the water. The air felt warm and soft, like a gentle touch on his cheek. Julian looked up and saw a soft mist beginning to rise from the far side of the lake, glowing with the colors of a gentle sunrise. It was a magical sight. He stood up and walked along the lake shore, following the glowing mist. As he approached, he saw a beautiful wooden bridge that spanned the narrowest part of the lake. The bridge was old and weathered, built from stout oak logs and covered in soft, green moss. It looked as if it had grown out of the earth itself, connecting the two shores in a graceful curve. Julian stepped onto the bridge, the wood feeling solid and reassuring beneath his feet as he crossed the calm water. From the middle of the bridge, Julian looked down into the water and saw that the reflection of the sky was filled with shifting colors. There were bands of soft rose, pale gold, and delicate mint green, all slowly swirling together like paint mixed in a bowl. He felt a deep sense of wonder, realizing that he was close to the source of the valley's magic. The air was sweet and carried the scent of rain and sweet clover, making him breathe deeply and slowly. Crossing to the other side, Julian entered a meadow filled with unusual flowers that looked like small, delicate bells. The flowers were semi-translucent, and as the gentle breeze blew through the meadow, they made a soft, tinkling sound, like distant wind chimes. The sound was incredibly soothing, a gentle melody that seemed to quiet the mind and ease the spirit. Julian walked slowly through the meadow, careful not to step on the blossoms, listening to their sweet, quiet song. The path through the meadow led to a gentle slope where the grass was thick and soft as velvet. Julian climbed the slope, and as he reached the top, he saw a small, hidden valley nestled between the hills. In the center of this valley was a beautiful, circular pool of water, surrounded by smooth, white stones. A soft, continuous mist rose from the pool, catching the sunlight and creating a perfect, vibrant rainbow that arched over the entire clearing. Julian walked down into the clearing, his heart beating with a quiet excitement. He approached the pool of white stones and looked into the water. It was unlike any water he had ever seen. It was thick and luminous, glowing with a soft, internal light that shifted through all the colors of the rainbow. He realized that this was the pool of the rainbow's end, the secret place where the colors of the world came to rest and refresh themselves after a rain. As he stood by the pool, a gentle movement on the far side caught his eye. Out from the shadow of a silver birch tree stepped a magnificent stag. The stag was large and graceful, with a coat of soft, silver fur that shimmered in the colorful light. Its antlers were long and branched, looking like polished silver, and its eyes were deep, wise, and filled with an ancient peace. The stag looked at Julian, and Julian felt a deep sense of respect and calm. The stag did not speak, but Julian could feel a voice in his mind, soft and clear as a bell. The voice welcomed him to the Valley of the Rainbow's End, telling him that he was the first traveler to find this place in many years. The stag explained that the colors of the rainbow were the feelings of the earth, gathered by the rain and shown to the sky. The pool was where these feelings returned to be cleansed and renewed, keeping the world beautiful. Julian knelt by the pool, feeling the warmth radiating from the colorful water. He pulled the small, glowing stone from his pocket and held it out. The stag nodded gently, and the stone began to glow more brightly, releasing a soft, warm light that merged with the colors of the pool. Julian realized that the stone was a key, a small piece of the valley's magic that had guided him safely through the mountains and the mist to this sacred place. The stag stepped closer, its silver hooves making no sound on the white stones. It dipped its head and drank from the pool, its antlers catching the colorful light and reflecting it in a dazzling display. Julian felt a deep peace settle over him, a feeling of complete contentment that he had never experienced before. All his worries, his plans, and his memories of the busy world faded away, leaving only the beautiful present moment in this quiet, magical valley. Julian asked the stag if he might stay in the valley for a while, to rest and to write in his notebook. The stag looked at him with its wise eyes and nodded, its voice echoing softly in Julian's mind. It told him that he was welcome to stay as long as he needed, for the valley was a sanctuary for all weary souls who sought peace. The stag then turned and walked slowly back into the shadow of the silver birch trees, disappearing into the soft light. Julian sat down on the soft grass near the edge of the pool, leaning his back against a smooth, white stone. He opened his notebook and began to write, his pen moving smoothly across the page. He wrote of the silver stag, the pool of glowing colors, and the deep peace of the valley. The words flowed easily, as if they were being whispered to him by the wind. He felt a deep sense of gratitude for this magical experience. As the afternoon slowly faded into evening, the colors of the rainbow over the pool grew softer and more muted. The vibrant reds and yellows turned to soft pinks and warm peach, while the deep blues and greens became gentle lavender and mint. The mist rising from the pool became thicker, wrapping around the clearing like a protective wall of soft, colorful cloud. The air grew cooler, carrying the fresh, clean scent of night rain and sleeping flowers. Julian finished writing and closed his notebook, tucking it safely back into his knapsack. He laid out his sleeping roll on the soft grass, close to the warm pool. The gentle warmth of the water radiated outward, keeping the cool night air at bay. He lay down on his back, looking up at the sky through the arch of the rainbow. The stars were beginning to appear, shining brightly through the colorful mist like tiny diamonds scattered on silk. The valley was filled with a deep, comforting silence, broken only by the occasional soft splash of the water in the pool or the rustle of the leaves in the wind. Julian felt his eyelids grow heavy, the rhythmic rise and fall of his chest matching the slow pulse of the glowing water. He felt safe and protected in this secret sanctuary, far away from the noise and the rush of the world he had left behind. In the quiet of the night, Julian had a beautiful, peaceful dream. He dreamed that he was flying over the valley, looking down at the pool of colors and the silver stag standing guard. He saw the rainbow stretching across the sky, connecting the valley to the rest of the world like a bridge of pure light. In his dream, he understood that the beauty of the rainbow was a gift, a reminder of the quiet magic that existed in the world. When Julian woke, the morning sun was rising over the peaks, casting a brilliant golden light across the valley. The pool was glowing brightly, its colors shifting and dancing in the morning light. Julian sat up, feeling completely refreshed and filled with a new sense of energy and purpose. He stretched his limbs, breathing in the crisp, clean air, and smiled at the beautiful day that lay ahead of him in this magical sanctuary. He spent the morning exploring the valley, finding small hidden paths that led to quiet glades and hidden streams. He saw gentle forest creatures, rabbits with soft brown fur and deer that looked at him without fear. They seemed to know that he was a friend, welcomed by the guardian of the valley. Julian felt a deep sense of connection to these animals, realizing that they all shared in the quiet magic of this peaceful place. In the afternoon, Julian returned to the pool and sat by the white stones. He took out his notebook and began to draw, sketching the silver stag and the pool of colors with delicate, precise lines. He wanted to capture the beauty of this place so that he would never forget it, even when he eventually returned to the busy world. His hand was steady, and his drawing captured the peaceful spirit of the valley perfectly. As he drew, the stag emerged once again from the shadow of the trees. It walked slowly over to Julian and stood beside him, looking down at the drawing. Julian felt a warmth in his mind, the stag expressing its approval of the artwork. The stag then lay down on the soft grass beside Julian, its large, silver body providing a warm, comforting presence. Julian smiled and continued to draw, feeling completely at peace beside the gentle giant. They spent the rest of the afternoon in quiet companionship, the cartographer and the guardian of the vale. The sun began its slow descent, painting the sky in shades of orange and violet. The colors reflected in the pool, creating a dazzling display of light that seemed to pulse with a slow, steady heartbeat. Julian felt a deep sense of belonging, as if he had finally found the place where his soul could rest. As the evening came, Julian prepared his camp once again. He felt a quiet sadness, knowing that his time in the valley would eventually have to end. He was a cartographer, and he had a duty to return to the world and share the peace he had found, not by revealing the location of the vale, but by sharing the quiet spirit of it through his drawings and his maps. He wanted to bring a piece of this magic to others. The stag seemed to understand his thoughts, its voice echoing gently in his mind. It told Julian that the magic of the vale did not belong to the valley alone, but lived within the hearts of all who sought peace and beauty. When Julian returned to the world, he would carry the light of the pool within him, and it would shine through his work and his life, touching the lives of others in quiet, unseen ways. Julian slept deeply that night, his mind filled with images of light and color. He dreamed of returning to his town, his little stone house, and his maps. In his dream, his maps were filled with soft colors, showing the quiet paths and the peaceful places that could be found by anyone who looked with a quiet heart. He saw people looking at his maps and feeling a sense of calm, their worries lifting from their shoulders. The next morning, Julian packed his belongings for the last time. He stood by the pool of white stones and looked at the glowing water, committing its colors to his memory. He pulled the small, glowing stone from his pocket and placed it gently on a flat, white stone at the water's edge, returning it to the valley. The stone glowed with a warm, steady light, a final farewell from the magical pool. The silver stag walked out from the trees to stand by the pool, its silver coat shining in the morning sun. It looked at Julian with its wise, gentle eyes and bowed its head in a final gesture of respect and farewell. Julian bowed in return, his heart filled with a deep, quiet gratitude. He turned and walked slowly up the slope, leaving the hidden valley behind, but carrying its peace deep within his heart. As he reached the top of the ridge, Julian looked back one last time. The mist had risen, completely hiding the valley from view, leaving only a perfect, vibrant rainbow arching over the hills. Julian smiled, knowing that the valley was safe, hidden from the world but forever alive in his mind. He turned and started his descent down the mountain, his steps light and his heart completely at ease as he walked. Julian returned to his town, to his little stone house and his table of maps. He continued to draw, but his maps were different now, colored with soft, warm washes of pink, lavender, and gold. Those who looked at his maps felt a strange, comforting peace, a sense of quiet wonder that stayed with them long after they had looked away. Julian smiled as he worked, knowing that he had found the rainbow's end, and that its light would never fade.